All right, Arsenal beating Brentford by 1-0 away from home. Mikel Arteta, I'm sure, would want the same outcome, but maybe by a bigger scoreline. I don't know. Yeah. Initial thoughts on this encounter. Arsenal welcome Wolves to the Emirates. And with Spurs playing Man City later, I'm sure Arsenal will be looking to pick up all 3 points from this one.
Yeah, I definitely see it happening. So I honestly think the whole early game kickoff curse, I don't think it will work in this one. Because Wolverhampton Wanderers, they put up a string of spirited performances and they got a couple of wins along the way. But I look at their last game against Fulham, the circumstance they lost that game, looking at that late VAR decision, that penalty awarded to Fulham that got Willian to score the winner. I think it's broken. I think it will break them a bit, and it will take some time for them to recover, knowing very well that this is a game, that game against Fulham is one of those games that the players look forward to, knowing that this is a very winnable game.
Okay.
And once you miss out on grabbing a win, especially in such excruciating circumstances, it definitely takes a toll on players. And players, I always say, they are as great athletes as they are humans. It will definitely take a toll on them. And the quick turnaround would be a little bit too much for Wolverhampton Wanderers to be able to recover from that painful loss and get maybe a draw or a win over Arsenal at the Emirates, especially with Arsenal in this kind of form that they are in at this point in time, going away to Brentford and grabbing that very difficult win away from home and spanking Lens in the Champions League. That just gives them enormous confidence, and when you add it all up to their quality, I think it will be way too much for Wolverhampton to deal with. So I will just go in for a straightforward Arsenal win over Wolverhampton. All
right, Emmanuel. Last weekend we saw Ramsdale in post after.
It's a bag of nerves.
Do you think Mikel Arteta should give him another opportunity?
I think the writing was on the wall once Raya was signed.
Okay.
It clearly we've watched football long enough to know that for goalkeepers there's nothing really like a number one, number two. Yeah, Mikel Arteta put himself in a very funny position when in a press conference or an interview he said, maybe 60 or 70 minutes into the game I would want to change my goalkeeper. We all know that was not going to happen under normal circumstances. And once he was giving 1 or 2 runs and then Raya came in for the big games, it was clear the message was sent.
Okay.
So, and you could clearly see he was trying to do things he wasn't comfortable with. If you watch that Brentford game, he had about 4, 5 or 6 errors, tried to kick it long, went out of play, tried to throw the ball to a player and bounced it right in front of him. So you could see he was a bag of nerves. But for him, I do think that if Ramsdale has any plans of playing in the Euros, the earlier he gets the team in January, the better for him. Because the coach has clearly shown you that he's not going to pick you in the big games. And it doesn't even look like he rotates in the Champions League. So we are probably going to play in the Carabao or the FA Cup. When is that going to come around? And even in that situation, if they are drawn a big game, you are probably not going to play. So for me, Ramsdale, there's very little he can do. It's a manager's decision. And if he has to be professional about it, but if he has plans of playing for England or making that Euro squad, I think he needs to look for another team.
Interesting. Ramsdale probably looking out for another team. Let's just wrap it up with Wolverhampton Wanderers. We've seen, after a very shaky start to the season, we've seen that they're beginning to get some of these points. They beat Spurs in dramatic circumstances and all. If they will have a chance at the Emirates, what should they execute? What should they do on the day?
I think they should be a bit better on the counter-attack. They have quick players. They have players that can beat any defender in one-on-one situations. You look at Neto, for instance. Matheus Cunha is a very tricky customer in there. They have players that can beat defenders in one-on-one situations. But it's what happens after they've beaten their man. Yeah. What happens? Cunha, we've seen him miss a lot of chances, goal-bound chances, very clear chances. He ends up some way, somehow missing those chances. Neto, as good as he is, pushing the pace, dribbling, crossing and all that, trying to find teammates. He is not particularly good when it comes to goal scoring. He misses a ton of chances. So it is in those situations that Wolverhampton need to be a bit sharper. They need to be a bit more clinical because Arsenal will give you chances because they push up very high and they deploy a left fullback who has publicly stated that he isn't comfortable playing it as a left fullback in Zinchenko. And so when you go at him, yeah, your chance, and you are quite good. Let's say you have Neto playing on that side. Yeah, your chances of beating him on multiple occasions are quite high. And so you definitely have chances going up against Arsenal. But it's what happens when you get those chances, especially on the counter-attack. That will be what Wolverhampton need to work on. And should they find their scoring boots, maybe they can pull a big surprise in there. But looking at how things are constructed at this point in time and the circumstance that they had to go through in their last game, matching up against this very confident Arsenal team, I don't see that happening.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. Wolves traveling to the Emirates for that game, Arsenal versus Wolves, Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. That is the first game of the weekend. Let's move on to the other part of London. West London, Chelsea at home to Brighton. Remember, the two teams have met once this season in the League Cup. Chelsea won that game by 1-0, if I remember correctly. It was the start of the Pochettino era when things weren't too clear in that particular encounter. They host Brighton, who themselves are hoping to, one, do well in Europe, and two, see if they can maintain their European positions at the end of the season. Let's have a look at Chelsea's last outing in the league. It was at St. James's Park last weekend against Newcastle.